All right, on to the main story. We are going to talk about autoimmune disease.
Everybody's in the land of autoimmunity in my neck of the woods. Yeah.
Oh, on some scale. So my autoimmune is basically allergies and food sensitivities. Mm-hmm. My Bible, so to speak, is the Sarah Ballantyne book, and it's called The Paleo Approach, Reverse Autoimmune Disease. And I discovered this book years ago. I think I sent you a copy of the book.
You did. I think it's a great book.
It's an amazing book. I learned so much about autoimmune because I didn't really understand the mechanisms. And you and I are like, we want to understand the biochemistry and the mechanisms and what makes this thing.
Why is that? I want to know why that is.
Exactly. And so what she explained, listen, if anybody wants to get into the science of how allergies come to be or how autoimmunity comes to be, please pick that book up or pick up another book. There's plenty of information online. She also has a blog online, very informative. It's mostly like, I think she has a podcast as well. I think. I don't remember the name of the podcast. I don't really listen to the podcast, but I do get the newsletter. Yeah. So if you want to know the nuts and bolts of it, I'm not going to bore anybody here with the nuts and bolts of it. But if you are curious and you want to learn more about exactly how this works, it is a fascinating read, and it will help you really understand autoimmunity. So basically, I'm just going to give you the broad strokes. Antibodies recognize a very small piece of a protein sequence, which is a sequence typically 15 amino acids long. So basically what's happening is you expose your body to an irritant over time. What happens is your immune system becomes attuned to that protein. And there's only, a small number of proteins. There's not that many different amino acids separating us from other, proteins, from other beings, from other creatures, etc. So let's take something like, what's a common allergen? What's a common?
Gluten, wheat. Is wheat common?
Peanuts. Do you know peanuts? A lot of people have peanut allergy.
Oh yeah, that's a common allergy. Yes.
I mean, I do have gluten sensitivity, and we've got this.
Right, but you're right. Peanut is probably the one you hear all the time. Nuts in general, but peanuts especially.
Right. So you've got a peanut allergy. You eat peanuts all the time. Doesn't bother you at first, but then after a while, you start having a reaction to the peanuts. Maybe your throat itches. Maybe your face itches, maybe your hands start itching, maybe you cough, maybe it happens different ways. Maybe your eyes get puffy and shut. Maybe your nose starts running. All of these are your body's immune system kicking up a defense. Now, what happens is the reason it crosses over into your immune system attacking your own body is because there is a protein that guarantee you looks very similar to the peanut amino protein, and your body goes after that because it's so similar. Let's say the protein looks like this and yours is like this.
Okay.
Your immune system will go after this because it looks very similar to this.
It's close enough.
It's close enough that your body's looking at it like, invader. It doesn't discriminate at this point. And so it goes after your own body. And so if it's your thyroid, it goes after your thyroid. If it's your skin, it goes after your skin. If it's your lung, it goes after your lung. Well, read off the list of all the different diseases that are considered autoimmune diseases.
Wow, there's over 100. There's over 100 autoimmune diseases. So, oh my gosh, Addison's, alopecia, ankylosing spondylitis. I'm not sure if I say that right.
Spondylitis.
It's like this. And that's not even all of it. that's not even all of them, even close. It's so big. Celiac disease, gluten intolerance, which is what I have.
Mhm.
Oh, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which I have. And I probably have it because I was eating gluten and didn't know that I was gluten intolerant or celiac. I didn't learn till much later. Actually, I learned first that I had Hashimoto's, and then I learned that later that I had gluten intolerance or celiac, and that was probably what caused all that. I mean, it just goes on and on. Mixed, connective tissue diseases, type 2 diabetes,
Arthritis.
type 1 arthritis. Some people argue that Alzheimer's might be. I mean, it's so broad that there's inflammation is in the mix. It's essential, and that it's essential to the understanding of all these diseases. So yeah, Meniere's, connective tissue, vasculitis. I mean, we could go Graves' disease.
Graves' disease.
Go on.
Becky Williams has the Graves' disease.
He has Graves' disease.
She had
Right.
the thyroid because she always talked about her bulging eyes.
Right. Right.
Now she's got the Graves' disease, which she found out after she went on that vegetarian diet for a while. And I remember.
Oh, she didn't learn that till after.
Yeah, after
Oh,
she did that whole vegetarian stint. And I remember thinking when she went vegetarian, I would just remember thinking, it's a bad idea. You've got autoimmune, honey. It's not a good idea. And sure enough, they diagnosed. So she had that fainting spell, and then
yes.
they diagnosed.
She didn't already she had Graves' disease before that.
Yeah.
Oh,
She just knew that she had the thyroid issue.
autoimmune thyroid. Yeah.
So what is it when your eyes get? Is that hypo or hyper?
Graves, that's hyper, but Graves' disease is sort of strange. It leans towards a hyper.
Okay.
And there's also thyroid eye disease, which is also autoimmune, but it goes directly to your eyes, basically. So
Wow.
even if you treat your thyroid, the autoimmune issue still goes after your eyes. It's just like all your organs are up for grabs when you have autoimmune.
Your immune
Yes.
system will go after it.
Go after it. Yes.
Very careful what I feed Lizzie because she gets behind her ears. She gets eczema behind her.
Okay, there's one, eczema. Yeah.
It's very painful and super crusty, and I have to put creams and stuff.
Aww.
But that's that, and she gets it on her hindquarters. But that's the extent of it. It's not like all over her. But I have to be very careful, So when the school
And you're vigilant. You guys really pay attention in your household.
I try not to cage her in too much, and because what happens is, there's always some party at school.
Yes.
And when the school contacts me and they're like, can she have a cupcake? There's a birthday party today. It's not gluten-free. And I'm like, okay, she can have half of one because I don't want her to feel like.
Right, to feel left out too much. Right.
Because I've got special needs. So I do allow her to have half of, a cupcake and stuff like that. She tends to not enjoy them very often. But
Okay.
I don't want her to feel deprived, so I do let her. And then, it's like, okay, I'll give her some allergy medication later. She's also allergic to apples.
You learned that.
But what's interesting? It's not all apples. It's certain apples. So red apples for some reason. Yeah, because I started looking at
varieties of apple. Red apple.
Because it's where they're grown. So some apples, it's not the apples themselves, it's where they're grown and what kind of trees are around them that they're cross-pollinating.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So can she have like a green apple versus a Honeycrisp?
Yes, she can have a Granny Smith with no problem. But if I give her a Honeycrisp or a Fiji, I don't even touch Red Delicious because I don't find them delicious. But
yeah, they're undelicious. Yeah.
He has a Fuji or a Honeycrisp or something like that.
Those are extra sweet and they're more recent hybrids.
They're good.
Those are like newer species of apple. Yeah.
Oh,
That's interesting.
They're very great for
They are.
But I can't
Yeah.
get to her because then she starts scratching her butt cheeks, and it's like, uh-oh, what did you have?
Oh, poor little kid.
Yeah. So, but she can have Granny Smith, no problem. Those, and I
Okay.
tried, bushes, but she loves apples.
So no EpiPen in your house. It's not that kind. It's not a histamine response per
No,
se.
well,
Not
yeah,
an anaphylactic.
but
It's not anaphylactic. Okay.
Right, exactly.
So in my case, it looks like I have celiac disease, which I didn't know I had for years, gluten intolerance. So that's technically not necessarily a histamine response. It's a food inflammatory reaction. They call it a FIR. So it's also autoimmune, but it's not engaging the histamine side of that response. And so it causes damage to the intestinal villi, which is, and it makes you essentially have a leaky gut. And once you get there, then of course, toxins can enter your body and you don't absorb food properly, you don't absorb nutrients. And so you can sort of be consuming all this food and sort of be starving and be completely malnourished. So, and it's not a case where you can develop, there's nothing to take. The only way, there's no medicine to take so far. The only thing you can do is avoid gluten. And then your body, your intestinal lining has to heal, and that can take years. And so I've been avoiding gluten. I guess it's probably been like 12, 15 years, probably. So, but it looks like consuming gluten for some people can also, once you're in that autoimmune, it can aggravate all your autoimmunity situations or diseases. And then I got Hashimoto's also. So that's an autoimmune thyroid disease that can cause your thyroid to go, super active or low active. In the long run, you end up with hypothyroid. So I have to take thyroid medicine. And that's my destiny. I will be taking thyroid medicine for the rest of my life. And that's just how it is.
Do you find that the medicine is helping?
Yeah, if you don't take the medicine, if your thyroid isn't functioning, your entire body is wrapped around your thyroid.
Is like the brains of the thyroid.
Quite a master gland, yeah. And so all those other functions don't work properly without the thyroid. So it's essential. And then it becomes a whole debate as to like which thyroid medications you like to take. Do you like to take natural thyroid? Do you like to take synthetic thyroid medicine? But that's like a whole other issue. But it's very common. It's super common for women, especially at a certain age. It's really common for women to have hypothyroid. So yeah. And really that's all related to diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, PCOS. All those things are like really related.
A little with the not the diabetes, but the pre-diabetes. I seem to be at that A1C of 5.7. It just it doesn't. Yeah, but it's right on the edge there. It doesn't go up. Yes. It doesn't go down either. And it's so disappointing every time I go.
Because you're doing everything so vigilantly. And that's what I feel like you can't, I feel like you have to do all that stuff. Plus some of it is not, it's not so reversible. It's just managing and being absolutely vigilant. You're still at that 5.7, huh?
Yeah, but it just doesn't move. It just like occasionally I'll get a 5.6, and then my blood goes down. But then 3 to 6 months later, it's back at 5.7. So I don't lose sleep over it, but it does bother me. It's like, how come? But now I'm hearing you say that when you have the autoimmune, it tends to.
Yeah, they all feed each other. It just triggers other autoimmune diseases. Yeah.
And so. You eat gluten-free.
Yes.
I eat gluten-free. Yes. But did you know that there are certain foods that are considered gluten-free that are not really gluten-free? Like
which ones are those?
So I have the Paleo Approach Cookbook. And this is Dr. Valentine.
There she is. I gotta get that book.
And they give you a whole list of of ingredients and additives that are not real.
Oh, that can trigger because of your thing you're talking about, where
Right.
it's shaped like this and now it's like that. Yeah. So,
But bigger than that, like people think because if you use gluten-free flour that it's gluten-free. But for example, xanthan gum, depending on how the xanthan gum is made, it is oftentimes made with wheat. So if you have xanthan gum,
what?
yes,
What?
yes, if you have xanthan gum in your ingredients and it's made from a wheat source, it is not gluten-free. Soy sauce is not gluten-free.
Soy sauce is not gluten-free. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a
I
bunch.
didn't know that about xanthan gum.
Yes, that's a huge one. Let me see if I can find it here. There's a whole list of
At
ingredients.
this point, I make my own blends. And actually now I'm just kind of steering a little bit more with the paleo and the keto-ish. And I'm just trying to stay away from grains in general. So
It's very hard when
yeah.
you see the little one though.
It's very hard. Yeah. Yeah. My guy is not, Calvin's not gluten-free yet, though I do test him periodically for celiac every few years. It's like I have to get like certified gluten-free oats, and I don't even use those very, I'm a little bit reactive to oats anyway,
Mhm.
even when they're certified gluten-free. Yeah.
Right. You know, because oftentimes it's grown in the same fields as the wheat.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why it's very difficult. And then
And it looks like sometimes the body becomes so sensitive that it starts to recognize any kind of similar protein
yes.
and goes after it. So yeah, sometimes your body can become like hypersensitive and triggered.
Exactly. Well,
That's why that Sarah Ballantyne with her books, I mean, she really really explains a lot.
Give you a list of grains and starches you can safely eat. So amaranth, arrowroot, beans, buckwheat, chickpeas, corn. Corn. Dr. Ballantyne says corn is a no-no because
corn is a trigger for other reasons. Yeah.
Molecularly similar as far as the body is concerned to wheat.
Okay.
Corn is not a good substitute according to Dr. Ballantyne. But I'm just reading this list here. Let's see. They also say beans, but Dr. Ballantyne said that beans.
She doesn't love beans, right?
She said they're anti-nutrient because they're not designed. You know how a lot of people get flatulence from eating beans?
Yes.
Because it's not designed to be digested. It's designed to go in and out. It's not designed.
So it's roughage? It's roughage?
Well, people treat it as roughage, but it's anti-nutrient because it doesn't, it basically harms the body because it doesn't.
So as it's going out, it takes nutrients with it?
As it's coming in, it's basically giving off, I think it's a phyto, I forgot the term for it.
Oh, it's not phytonutrients.
No.
Okay, phytotoxin?
I might be wrong, but I can't remember the name.
Okay.
It's off of phyto, I think it's phytic acid. And that's not. And so what happens, it gives off this phytic acid that is hostile to your gut microbiome. Because its goal is to get in, undigested, be carried somewhere else, and be deposited into the earth to grow someplace else. It's not designed to give you nutrition.
Okay.
And that's why she says beans. So they're saying beans here. So I'm not sure how. I just lost the page. Anyway, it's a bunch of things. But those are typically what manufacturers will put forward in the place of gluten, but they're not, especially if you have celiacs. That's kind of important.
Yeah. It's a filler ingredient.
Yes. Well, it's a filler ingredient, but also it's deceptive because it's not really gluten-free in the sense of like the way an arrowroot, let's say, is gluten-free.
But it will give you a food inflammatory response.
It'll give you an inflammatory response, and it will not nourish you. So she says, vegetables, meats, she said like the vegetarian stuff is just not healthy for a person with autoimmune issues. So thinking that you're going to eat beans and rice and make up, protein that way, that's not going to be nutritious. And that's why when Wendy Williams said she was vegetarian, I was like, oh, yeah, that's not good.
She did lose weight fast on that. So I think, was she vegan? I don't think she was even vegetarian. I think she was vegan.
She was vegan. She even posed for PETA with the I'd rather wear.
Okay.
Wear. Yeah,
right.
She had that going on for a while, but ultimately it made her worse, So if you get the chance, Dr. Sarah Ballantine, she's not paying me to do this.
Right.
It's saved my health.
Yes. Great book.
And saved me a lot of heartache. And I imagine if you had found this book, 20 years ago, you might have been able to.
Yes, I would be better health. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So please check it out. I don't know. Maybe I don't recommend the gluten-free for dummies because some of the advice is not. But the thing about the Dr. Ballantine book is some of that stuff is very strict. Like she also says, don't eat eggs. And then she gets into FODMAP, which is a whole, we're not going to get into FODMAP. But, it's basically foods that have, I can't even explain what FODMAP is right now, but, FODMAP, look it up. And she gets into all of these different subsets of like what foods are okay, what foods are not okay. And then it gets really cumbersome and it becomes very expensive. So,
yes.
So thankfully, you and I, we've got Whole Foods and, we have the time to make our own breads and make our own this and that. But not everyone has the time or the inclination or the money. So for example, she said, don't eat eggs. I could never not eat eggs. And she gives a whole explanation about why eggs are not good for you. It's really you can eat the yolk, but not the white, I think it is, because something.
Wait, is the yolk okay or not or the white's okay? I heard the white is inflammatory, but I don't know from her. Okay.
Yeah, she talks about the white of the egg being inflammatory. You can have the yolk of the egg. But they don't bother me. So you've got to decide,
what works for you.
I had a friend who was diagnosed with getting shots every month for rheumatoid arthritis. And I said, well, have you considered maybe cutting back on the pasta? Maybe I'm not going to give up pasta. So she'd rather would have the shots than to give up pasta, which is basically destroying her health. But what can you do? So say, take what you want from the book. It's very informative. It's best to know and then work from there with what will work for your body, what's not going to irritate you. I refuse to give up eggs, for example. So other things I don't really budge on. I do enjoy chickpeas. I cannot tell a lie. I like curry chickpeas. With spinach.
I didn't realize about the chickpeas. I get back.
The chickpeas are on the no list, and this other gluten chickpeas are okay, but I don't.
Okay.
So you've got to make
what works for you.
Right, you've got to do what works for you, because this is about saving your life and saving your health.
Well said.
So that's it today for another version of Urban Weekly. I will see you next week, my darling.
Yes, I will see you. I look forward. Mwah.
Mwah. Bye-bye, babe.
Ciao, Bella. Bye.